Welcome back to Plantopia. Plantopia is the plant health podcast of the American Phytopathological Society, and I'm your host, Matt Kasson. I'm an associate professor of forest pathology and mycology at West Virginia University. This is the 8th episode of Season 5, and today I'm very excited to welcome Isako de Tomassi, a PhD student in the School of Integrative Plant Science in the Plant Pathology and Plant-Microbe Biology program at Cornell University. Izzi currently holds a BS in Plant Science, along with minors in Mushroom Science and Technology and Environmental Soil Science from the Pennsylvania State University. Izzi is currently a member of Sylvia Restrepo's lab at Boyce Thompson Institute, where she focuses on characterizing U.S. clonal lineages of the late blight pathogen Phytophthora infestans. Izzi has served or is currently serving as a TA for a number of courses at both Cornell and Penn State, including Investigative Biology Lab and Magical Mushrooms Mischievous Molds at Cornell and Fungal Biology and Soils at Penn State. Izzi is currently president of Cornell Advancing Science and Policy Club and co-founding member of the Science Network for Advancing Policy. She is co-creator and co-organizer of the McClintock Letters Initiative, a nationwide, multi-pronged grassroots campaign to encourage and support fellow undergraduates and graduate students, postdocs, and other early career faculty to write op-eds to their hometown newspapers to communicate what they do to the public and why we as a society should care when funding for this work is suddenly eliminated. Izzi currently serves as member and officer of APS's Mycology Committee and as a member of the APS Diversity Committee. Izzi, it's a pleasure to have you on today's show.
Thanks. It's really such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So I was looking back through your history, and I see that you started your academic journey in Philadelphia, a stone's throw from Fairmount Park and the Schuylkill River. I've spent a good deal of time down that way, so I'm familiar with the area. Did you grow up there?
So I was born in Philly, but I actually moved around a lot. But yeah, I started college there at the Community College of Philadelphia, and that is where my academic journey started.
But you were living there at the time, like when you graduated high school in Philadelphia?
No, I actually went to a couple different high schools, one in New York and one in Massachusetts. But I started at CCP in 2017, I want to say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't really know what the heck I wanted to do. I just was like, oh, I guess I was like good at science. How about I major in biology? I'll do that.
I see that you were involved with like community gardening initiatives through CCFP, and did you always have a green thumb and a passion for like food security and healthy eating?
So I'll say originally when I wanted to become a scientist, right, I was like, let me think of what I consider like what matters the most, like things that matter the most and how I can use science to pursue goals for those things. So at first I actually wanted to be a soil scientist. I was like, you know what? Soil purifies our water, our buildings are built on it, our food is grown in it. That's what matters the most. And I actually ended up going to the PREX program. It's the Phenotypic Plasticity Research Experience for Community College Students. So I ended up working in a soil science lab as part of that program. And the project I worked on ended up also involving tomatoes and arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi. And I was like, oh, wait, I really love plants and fungi. Okay, this is all adding up. I like plants and dirt and fungi. Okay, great. I'll mention too that actually when I was at Community College of Philadelphia, I was volunteering at, I think it's called Philly House now, but at the time it was called the Sunday Breakfast Mission. And it's actually a soup kitchen and shelter. And that was one of the ways that I volunteered to give back to the community. And I was like, wow, food security is a real issue. And if I can find a way to use science towards the aims of food security, even though it's obviously really different scales and very different problems that lead to food insecurity in inner city Philadelphia versus talking about global sustainable food security and sustainable global food production or whatever. But as far as the Grady's Community Garden at Community College of Philadelphia, So I was part of the like Lion Leaders program. And yeah, basically just we volunteered to help with different events and stuff on campus. And we also did some stuff with the Grady's Community Garden that they have at CCP. It's really just a nice little patch. So we helped set up beds for growing stuff in, and we had like a little greenhouse, just a nice small little greenhouse with like herbs and stuff. And as part of volunteering with that program, I did also participate in food giveaways and stuff like that, where we had fresh produce and stuff that we gave away to community college members, students, and also like members of the community. Really, anyone who came got.
Yeah, yeah. I want to come back to the REU. That was at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, right? That you did?
Yeah.
That was early on in your community college experience?
So I guess that was actually in 2019. So I had been going to CCP for a year and a half at that point, I think. My incredible friend Helen was someone that I met at Community College of Philadelphia, and she had done the same REU. And when she was telling me, yeah, you like go and learn to be a scientist and they pay you. They like pay you money.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, okay, so I guess I could do that and I'll still like wait tables at night. And then I saw the stipend for the program and I was like, this is amazing. This is an actual salary.
Yeah.
But still, I was like, wow, this is incredible. So yeah,
To be able to focus just on the science and not worry about how you're paying the bills.
exactly. It was like really amazing to be like, oh, wow, I actually have money and can be comfortable and not have to pick up 4 extra shifts because I'm like, am I going to pay rent? So yeah.
Did they provide housing as part of that?
Yeah, so actually, and this RU was put on by University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, but it was an NSF RU in partnership with Parkland Community College. So that's actually a community college that's right next to UIUC. You could stay in the dorms, or they would give you like a little bit extra stipend to rent an apartment. So that's what I did. I found an apartment of a student who was like away for the summer or whatever, and just rented his apartment for the time that I was there. So yeah, that was covered too, which was incredible.
And some of the work you did out there laid the foundation for your AMF tomato interactions work that you published a first author paper on?
Yeah, so that was the work that I did there in the lab of Dr. Andrew Margonaut, who honestly, like, I was really spoiled to have my first scientific mentor to be such an incredible person. I feel like he set the bar really high.
That's not a bad thing.
No, for sure. And I would say that definitely encouraged me to stay in science too, being like, oh, wait, here's this really motivated and impressive and amazing scientist who's also like a good person and also is like very human, very much was like, hey, we're going to discard this whole hierarchy BS. Call me Andrew. And at the time, as like an undergrad being in community college, I was just like, what? Here's this doctor, like this person with a PhD.
Yeah.
Prior to doing that NSFRU, I didn't, it's going to sound so silly, but I didn't realize that people just got PhDs.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody with a PhD. Obviously, I had met a few of my professors at the community college who had PhDs.
Sure.
I thought that was for just someone who was incredibly brilliant, or like I guess I would have assumed you'd have to be really wealthy to pursue a PhD also, because like how do you pay for anything while you're in school for that many years?
Yeah. I think that comes down to this larger idea that inclusive science, where you can see people that look like you, makes it maybe more possible for you to want to pursue that, because you're not like, oh, I'm not a stuffy old white guy, I can't go in academia. But when you realize, no, it takes all kinds of people to make science what it is, you realize that, there's a place for you as well.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how thoughtfully designed REUs are to be inclusive and that they provide financial support so that people can participate.
Yeah, and I saw that you also went to UT Knoxville for another REU, and Janita was one of the faculty that was involved with that. She's a colleague of mine as a forest pathologist. And you worked on flowering dogwood. You were doing like population genetics, is that right?
So the project was actually a repurposing of a microbiome data set that one of Janita's previous students, who actually, he was a master's student with her and then he became a PhD student. But yeah, it was repurposing a microbiome data set that he had from a project to try to answer new questions. And there's all this data that's already collected out there. Can we bioinformatically figure out some other answers using the same data?
That's great. It's also nice to know that like you can use a an actual data set that was collected for purposes of graduate studies and
Yeah.
be able to learn the workflow of how to take it from the field to the computer.
Yeah, it was really cool too, another component of that, and that was the big REU, Bioinformatics, Genetics, and Genomics REU at University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And Kimberly Gwynn, I think, was the, like, director, the person, like, in charge of that one there, and she's honestly, that program was incredible too. I learned so much. But, yeah, no, it was really cool that they also had us do it was a bioinformatics RU, but they also had us do some bench work, and we actually got to go out to the forest to see the, like, tree stands where this data had originally been collected or whatever.
Even if you want to be a bioinformaticist, if that's what you want to do, that's great. But it's also useful and relevant to know how to find your organism in the wild, to know where it occurs, how it looks. Even if you're not an expert in isolating it, you at least know where you might go to find it. I think that's important. As we look at these two REUs that kind of defined your early career, not that both of them were at the same time, but do you feel like an REU is like a must-do kind of thing for an undergrad to really understand what grad school is going to be like? Or do you think it's an important part of the development of an early career scientist?
I would say that doing an REU was a crucial part of my development as an early career scientist, and as someone who attended community college first, there weren't opportunities for me to pursue research there. REU was absolutely critical. I went to Penn State for my bachelor's degree, and there's tons of research opportunities. You can be a freshman and start a job in a lab your first semester. So that's a really great way to get experience and start to understand what grad school and what career in research looks like. But for someone who I would imagine it's probably like that in, like, small liberal arts colleges too, like, you don't have those opportunities. Having these kinds of programs available is really critical to the development, I would say, of the STEM workforce in the future, having these opportunities available.
Yeah. And I realize there's some barriers there. Even if you get paid, you still have to pay for transportation out there. And that could be a financial barrier for some. But I do feel like providing a living wage and cheap housing is a real incentive for getting people that might otherwise feel they can't afford it. You go to Penn State to study agroecology, but you spend much of your time devoted to research in plant pathology. What got you interested in working on mushrooms? Tell me more about that.
Like I mentioned, doing that REU in that soil lab, the project involved tomatoes and AMF. So I was like, wow, AMF are incredible. Fungi are incredible. Like I said, dirt and plants and fungi. So I actually chose Penn State based on the fact that they had a mushroom science and technology minor and that they did ecology work. So I went there knowing that I was going to try to pursue those kinds of opportunities, and anything to do with mycology was really what I wanted to get into. And yeah, so I majored my major technically was plant science, but a concentration in agroecology, and I minored in soil science and mushroom science and technology. And so for that, people might not be aware, mushrooms are like Pennsylvania's number one crop. In southeastern Pennsylvania, they grow about two-thirds of the white button mushrooms that are consumed in the US. So Penn State is really uniquely positioned to do cultivatable edible mushroom research because they actually have this mushroom research center. So it's this really unique facility, the only one of its kind in North America, where we have just all these different rooms for growing mushrooms. And it's not just white button mushroom. We also had indoor cultivation of morels. We had oyster mushrooms. Oh, we also had some really rad projects looking at mycomaterials.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. I remember just peeking into one of the, like, growth rooms and being like, "What the heck is that? It's huge." And they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just some, like, mycomaterials project, just, like, building stuff out of fungi. Don't worry about it." I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?"
Yeah. So I want to talk more about that, but first I want to ask a question about your bachelor's degree. And I too have a foundational degree in plant sciences, although it's forestry and forest ecosystem sciences. But do you feel like having a foundational degree in plant sciences better prepared you for understanding and being like a plant pathologist?
So I'll say that what I really care about is actually directly helping growers. That's something that I really care about. Having applied agricultural research is what really drives me, what really excites me, and what I care about. So I will say that having a plant science degree, and specifically an agroecology degree, was really useful because I had to learn things like taking an agricultural economics class, taking IPM classes, integrated pest management classes, as well as learning not just like plant biology stuff, actual like agricultural production courses and stuff.
So it just makes you able to connect with different farmers and whatnot because you can speak the same language. It's not all your terminology is plant pathology based. You understand, like you said, the economics of agriculture, about yields, about economic losses, and things like that. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm really lucky that it helped to put more into perspective.
So at Penn State, you worked on 2 projects that I could find, one on mushrooms and a second investigating Morchella as an endophyte of maize. Really, your co-authored papers are on the button mushrooms work, and I thought maybe you might tell us a little bit more about that project and your role in that project.
Sure, yeah. One of my jobs when I went to Penn State for my undergrad was working in the lab of Dr. John Pecchia. It was
Mhm.
technically my PI on paper, but the project itself, we called it the DEVOME project, the Developmental Microbiome Project. And I actually had 3 PIs, John Pecchia, Carolee Bull, and Kevin Hockett. The project was those 3 PIs, 2 postdocs, and myself. It was not gonna lie, it's funny being in a meetings for a project that have 3 PIs. Just like they have 3 very different backgrounds, 3 different backgrounds and perspectives that they're bringing to the project, and when one of them's, "Oh, try doing this thing," another one's, "Oh, yeah, how about this thing too?" And then another one's, "Okay, and if we blah, blah, blah," and I'm like, "Okay, that's like I don't know, 30 hours of work that you just assigned. Okay, let's do this, let's do this."
Yeah. But
Like
plus, you have 2 of the PIs telling you how great bacteria are, and you have to like pretend you like them more than fungi and all that.
I'm like, I care about bacteria and how they act in service of fungi, and that's like what I that's
Right.
like but, oh, yeah, so we're looking at the developmental microbiome of Agaricus bisporus, the white button mushrooms, and looking at the bacterial constituents, particularly, of that microbiome.
And one of the biggest problems is called fly speck, or is it just bacterial spot? What are the main bacterial diseases of mushrooms?
Oh, sure, green mold, which is caused by trichoderma, that's a big problem, and the other is blotch. So, bacterial blotch, which is caused by a couple of different pseudomonads.
Did that work further solidify your desire to pursue a graduate degree in plant pathology?
I would say yes. It definitely furthered my desire to pursue graduate school in plant pathology. It's exciting being part of designing a project. And so that was something too. I was really fortuitous that I came in when the project had just gotten funding and we hadn't really started doing the work. So the one postdoc had was doing getting some preliminary results looking at different antibiotics, but I got to really feel like I was part and this was something that I'll really say that group was so great in making me, even though I was just like an undergrad, feeling like I was part of the process. Like I went to all the meetings
Yeah.
week or every other week and because I was, one of the people actually setting up the experiments and like physically doing the experiments, I feel like they appreciated my input when I was like, "Oh, actually, we encountered this problem last time, maybe we could try this." And they're like, "Yeah, sure, let's try it." It made me feel valued and like I was part of the team. And but yeah, it's just so exciting.
Sure, and it's also evident in just you talking about it, but looking at your history that you found a number of really great mentors of those early stages that really helped to be focused on the science because you had such good mentorship. There wasn't worry about conflicts or things like that because you could just focus on the science.
Yeah, I'm really lucky, honestly. And I'm lucky too that the mentors that I had were also pretty committed to making sure that I pursued professional development opportunities. Like they had me go to present at the mushroom short course where they actually had me present data from the project that I was working on to mushroom growers. I actually interacting with people in industry and in agriculture, which is very important. Yeah, making me present posters too at like for the Mortella project that I worked on with Dr. Gretchen Koldak. Even though that whole project was really a lesson in resilience and a lesson in how to just troubleshoot from every angle when absolutely nothing is working. Yeah, even though I did not succeed as confirming Mortella americana as an endophyte of maize, it was still really great that I still presented a poster on the work that I was in the middle of doing and trying to do.
And I think that's important to have those things that don't always work out or they're not the main focus. In addition to the research you did and clearly publishing 2 papers out of that work and then another first authored paper out of your work at the Community College of Philadelphia, you had some great research experiences. But I see that you also TA'd a number of things. You TA'd fungal biology for Dave Geiser at Penn State, me as well. And was TAing something you always wanted to do? Because I saw that even back at the Community College of Philadelphia, you served as a chemistry and biology tutor. I also see that you served as a TA for what most people would regard as the most popular Cornell course ever, Magical Mushrooms, Mischievous Molds. That was a course originally developed by George Hudler and really currently run by Kathy Hodge. That's like a huge class. And so you have these really formative teaching experiences with Dave at Penn State and Kathy and others at Cornell. Tell me a little bit about those experiences.
Yeah, so to start being a biology, chemistry, microbiology, and biochemistry tutor at CCP, Community College of Philadelphia, a couple of things. One, I thought that it would help me be better in my classes as I kept the material strengthened within myself by teaching it to others. It also paid. So like I said, I worked multiple part-time jobs to support myself through college. So that was one of the 3 or 4 jobs that I was working while I was at CCP. And I also was like, this is going to look good on grad school applications further down the line. And I also really value that experience because I was able to work with so many people who were non-traditional students or marginalized or who were taking these weed out STEM courses. General chemistry is hard, you guys. Gen Chem actually is really hard. And by the end of the semester, maybe a quarter of the class has dropped out of the class. You know what I mean? So it really meant a lot to me to be a part of the resources and support that CCP provides for their students. All the tutoring there is free for all students. So they pay the tutors. They legitimately paid me minimum wage. I think it was like $9 an hour when I started.
Yeah.
But it's an incredible resource that I used when I was a student at CCP also. I would go to tutoring multiple times a week because science is hard. And it was really great for getting me to form study groups and stuff, but it was also an excellent opportunity to help to try to impart some of the skills and habits that I had learned, like study habits, to other students, as well as a platform to share opportunities such as the REU that I did with other students. Pathways2science.org is actually an incredible, intuitively, easily navigable database of just hundreds of opportunities like REUs and fellowships and all kinds of different programs and funding sources and stuff. And just being able to share that with people who, as I had very shortly before, not known that you can pursue a career in science.
I think one of the other advantages for having early career scientists as TAs, it makes sense that we have that kind of mentoring pipeline. But students are often intimidated by professors and they're more inclined to talk to a TA. Well, what did you do? How do you pursue this? They don't feel as intimidated to ask questions of someone that's more their age. So it's really important you serve as a really important liaison.
For some of the other TA opportunities, like for Dave Geiser's class, I actually was still an undergrad and I loved the class when I took it with him so much and just was nuts about fungi that I was like, hey, can I please TA for your class? And you just give me teaching credits or something. And he's like, yeah, sure, why not?
Right.
So that was just a really fun opportunity to, again, strengthen the material within myself. And also, like you said, I was able to be a little bit more accessible for students. I would host exam review sessions before the exams, and I had some decent attendance for some of them. And it really was even just being able to have that role of being someone who can assure students. I took this class last year. Yes, the exams are hard, but I'm telling you everything you need to know right now, and you learned everything you need to know in the class. You'll be okay. Being able to give that reassurance, because professors can be intimidating, even though I don't think Dave Geyser is necessarily.
No.
Yeah.
The other thing I think about is my former PhD student who just defended this summer, she served as a co-instructor for one of my courses, and she recruited like undergrads to work in our lab that way. And it was such a great pipeline for that because, again, she had a rapport with them that was different than maybe with I find myself to be a pretty approachable person, but that's not a substitute for being young and closer in age and maybe like generation to the students because they're like, oh, 45-year-old dude, what can I tell you?
I'm actually really excited too about like the TA-ship that I'm doing right now. So it's for an investigative biology,
Yeah, I saw that.
and it's like mostly freshmen. So it's going to be a lot of work. And I'm going to be honest, I only took it because my PI wasn't really sure about funding for this year. So it's like, I gotta get a TA-ship. But we had our like first day of class today. And I don't know, it's just like such a nice energy being like, oh wow, I am like going to serve as a role model, hopefully, for these students as someone who's
Sure.
passionate about the work they do. And
Yeah, no, it's great. And what I like about this new class that you're TAing for is it's like different. It's much different from your other things. So it's like it's broadening your own experiences and giving you opportunities to meet people you might not otherwise interact with at the university.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And especially because it's a huge class. It's, I don't know, like 400 students or something. And so I'm meeting, yeah, TAs also from like different departments and stuff. And yeah, I don't know, it'll be fun.
So I want to switch and shift topics. As an early career scientist, you've dealt with something that I imagine a number of young scientists have experienced in recent months, the loss of your PhD advisor due to mass reduction in force across the USDA. Can you walk us through that from your perspective? Because one, I think it's a very difficult thing that you had to and are continuing to overcome, but I also think it's important for listeners that are maybe not scientists to understand the kind of impacts that these mass reorganizations and firings are having on early career scientists.
Yeah, sure. Like in the weeks before, there had been a request sent out to collect the names of probationary employees at the organization. And so actually the day, February 14th, the St. Valentine's Day massacre, that everyone had been fired, my lab was actually like hosting a party for the department that morning. So like my PI texted me at, I don't know, 8 a.m. or something and was like, hey, BT dubs, I'm not going to be at the coffee hour thing that we're hosting. And I was like, what the heck? And then I heard from a close friend of mine who also lost her PhD advisor that he had lost his job. And I was like, oh my goodness, is that what's happening?
Yeah.
And then, yes, he confirmed that there had been mass termination emails sent out. And it was a really awkward party because
Yeah.
essay party, it was like our department coffee hour.
Sure.
Everybody drinks food, and it was St. Valentine's Day, so it was all, like, themed. But it was really nice that the director of the School of Integrative Plant Science actually gave, like, a little speech about solidarity between our university and the impacted scientists, and myself and the 2 other PhD students in my lab who lost their advisor were understandably very upset. I would say that I cried for a month, and of course, there was this, like, back and forth of some people got their jobs back, and
Right.
in the courts were waffling with, yes, it's legal, no, it's not legal. So it just created a lot of uncertainty, and I really did not get much work done for a while. Like I said, I had a huge impact. I considered leaving. I was like, is this a sign? Is this a sign I'm supposed to leave academia? These jobs with the USDA, these are good jobs by highly qualified individuals who have years and years of training. And I'm like looking at this and seeing these people tossed aside by the federal government when thinking, like, why would I want to stay?
I get it because 3 of my mentees lost their jobs in that shuffle. And I think as a mentor, that's a hard blow too, because you're like, I worked to position these folks for opportunities. And certainly it was mostly their hard work, but also like advising them, okay, do this or don't do this. And to see them unemployed and myself still employed,
Ugh.
there was a lot of guilt about that because I'm like, I'm training students for jobs that don't exist, or I'm training them for jobs that existed, but they were not as secure as we were led to believe. And I think we take this and move it forward, and certainly you could add other things, but one of the reasons I felt it was important to have you on Plantopia was something that you and your fellow grad student Emma Scales did through the Cornell ASAP Club. You basically started this McClintock Letters Initiative, and I think it would be awesome if you would talk to our listeners about what that was, what clearly we know what inspired it, what were the results of that multi-pronged grassroots effort.
Yeah, the initiative started here at Cornell, the Cornell Advancing Science and Policy Club that I lead with Emma Scales, as well as Alex Lando and Hannah Frank, or the other leaders of the org. We happened to connect with this group of similarly highly motivated graduate students and early career researchers who also led science policy groups across the country. And we tapped into this network of people that we just happened to meet, and they had this Slack group, right, that we joined. And we were like, hey guys, what are we doing with this Slack group? Let's have a meeting and talk about what we want this group to do. We're all raring to go. Let's figure some stuff out. And so basically in this meeting with this group of early career researchers from across the country, me and Emma were like, hey, so we thought it would be cool if we do this project. We had already decided on the name to call it the McClintock Letters, where we write opinion pieces and letters to the editor to local hometown papers across the US, which is similar to this other project called Science Homecoming. When I had stumbled upon that project, it was primarily geared towards faculty members, established faculty members who were NIH funded. And we were like, we want this McClintock Letters project to be geared towards early career researchers, but everyone's welcome, of course. We had plenty of faculty also, and retired people too, and people in industry who also contributed. So we want to write these opinion pieces to local hometown papers to share the cool research that we do with the public, as well as to help increase the public's awareness and positive perception of the value of federally funded scientific research. Federally funded research was and is under attack. Getting the word out to lay people about what's going on. And also, at its core, the McClintock Letters is a science communication project. We got these scientists, hundreds of scientists, to attend these workshops, these science communication workshops, where science communication isn't as highly valued in academia as it should be.
You don't say.
Scientists were trained to write in this jargon-heavy way, highly technical writing that is very important, that we are trained to do that. I'm not saying it's not, but we hosted these science communication workshops where we got hundreds of scientists to step out of their comfort zone to learn how to write op-eds for general audiences and talk about their science. And really, so another part of this was we actually encouraged people to include this local supporting science pledge, where we actually got to get feedback from people who read the articles. And we got a lot of really great feedback from people who are saying oh, I learned a lot reading this article.
Yeah.
Because individual researchers, and this is a really important part of this project too, we didn't have templates that we gave out to people and were plug in your info and try to get this published. These were all highly individual, highly personalized pieces where people talked about their science origin story, the work that they do and why it's meaningful to not only them, but to society. And yeah, it was really wonderful reading these pieces too. I was so surprised by how good so many of them were. People speaking passionately about their work in a really accessible way.
That must have made you feel really proud, though.
Yeah, for sure.
And certainly you got a lot of positive media from that covered in major outlets and newspapers. Our need to communicate with the public about the importance of science and the implications of lost funding on training of scientists is not over. What do you envision as the next steps as this? Because if I'm sensing anything about you, it's that you're just getting started.
Love that. Thank you. What a compliment. For the listeners, I'm flipping my hair right now. So remember how I said that this project, this McClintock Letters project initiative was made possible by this Slack group of other all grad student leaders. So we ended up calling ourselves the Scientist Network for Advancing Policy. SNAP.
Nice.
And SNAP is actually right now coordinating nationwide visits for early career scientists to go and speak with their representatives. Congress is actually in recess right now for the month of August. These are district office visits that we're coordinating. For example, I am the coordinator for a visit to an office to Rep. Melanie Stansbury in New Mexico. So actually, in about 36 minutes, there's going to be a couple of early career researchers who are doing a visit to talk to Rep. Stansbury's office about funding, NSF and NIH funding, so federal funding for research. And this is actually in, I think we have 34 states that this is happening in last week, this week, and next week. I think we have 140 scientists total participating. And we're actually using for some of the one-pagers that people leave behind with the representatives and with the offices of these reps. On the one-pagers, we have been using quotes, actually, from the McClintock Letters Initiative, quotes from either the letters that were written by scientists, or we've also been using quotes of the feedback that we got from the public who read these letters, because the letters had like a little link to that supporting science pledge. So we have put those on these one-pagers that we're leaving with representatives to be like, hey, look at what people in your district are saying about federal science funding.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that there's impact in providing both perspectives. The letter writers, because they'll say, of course, the letter writer said this, but to see a positive response from the general public is really important. So you're currently now working under Sylvia Restrepo at Boyce Thompson, and that's following the departure of your principal investigator in April. How has your research shifted with the loss of your advisor? But do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're focused on in and around Phytophthora and a little bit about your research?
Yeah, so I was really lucky that Sylvia's expertise overlapped with that of my former PI, because I was actually able to keep the couple of projects that I was already working on. So for two of the chapters for my PhD, there was one project that I did end up leaving behind because that had involved some like USDA collaborations. I'm really lucky. It definitely was a big disruption in that I had this period of uncertainty and emotional distress, but I'm very lucky that I was able to continue with work that I had started in my former PI's lab.
That's good to hear,
Yeah.
because there's always a concern that, like, I think universities, Cornell obviously, but like other universities are really good about supporting their students that are already accepted there, even when things happen. But it works out great when you can continue to do the work that you were already doing without having to shift too much.
To that note, I will say that when I was made an offer from Cornell, they gave me an offer letter that outlined 5 years of support. And they agreed to support me as a PhD student for 5 years. So actually, because of all of the uncertainty around funding and federal actions, we very much dramatically lowered our graduate school admissions for this upcoming year. In my program, the plant pathology and plant microbiology program, they were understandably concerned about continued support for the grad students they already have. Oh, and also, again, obviously, to be clear, I speak for myself and not my institution. I'm just, yeah, just like a little disclaimer there, rather. But yeah, that did make me feel good as a current graduate student that they wanted to make sure they were able to take care of us, the ones that they already had. But it really is a shame because my program doesn't have any incoming students for this semester, which is a major blow to the research capabilities of this program, of the plant pathology program here at Cornell, because that's like my cohort, I want to say was like 8 or 9 maybe. And I think the one last year was maybe like 7.
Do you see a shift in response to that? Do you see a lot more recruitment of undergrads to fill some of those roles?
I would say no. I can't speak for everywhere, but I actually was just talking to the undergrad TA who will be helping me TA the bio course, for which I'm a lab instructor. And she was saying that I don't know if she used the word cutthroat, but getting a paid undergrad research position is very difficult right now, was the impression that I got from her. And I'll say I know that Cornell had a hiring freeze type thing going on where just for the class that I was TAing for last semester, they were like, we can't pay for the undergrads that you normally have to help you make media and prep labs and clean dishware and do things like that to help support the teaching labs.
Yeah.
So I would imagine it's similarly the case. I'm not sure, but
On the topic of undergrads, by now you've interacted with many of them over your career here, either through TAing or in your capacity as a club member or leader or through your advocacy work. What advice do you have for those undergrads that are thinking about grad school, yet we're in the environment we are, where there are less opportunities? How do we encourage the generation beyond you, even the next generation, given the changes in job opportunities and spots for grad school, things like that? What's your take on that?
wow, really for encouraging the next generation, I guess I just want to say this is an opportunity to some things that need to change in academia, maybe.
Mhm.
Like one thing that I keep saying about the McClintock Letters Initiative, right, is that I hope that initiative is a part, and it has been also because I've had people at other institutions who work for other institutions reach out to me to say, "Hey, my institution wants to start a similar program where we have people in our program, like staff members and faculty members or whatever, do this and write these letters to speak to the public." So I really hope that the McClintock Letters Initiative is part of a larger cultural shift in academia towards recognizing the value of science communication and of having public-facing initiatives for individual scientists to participate in. So for the next generation of researchers, I'll say that I hope that they continue to be a part of that cultural shift because it's very important if we want the public to continue supporting and trusting in scientific research, that we address that gap of communication between scientists and researchers and the public.
It seems to me that this idea of being outward facing, interacting with the general public for a long time seemed like an optional thing for a lot of people. And now it's all about survival. And I think there's obviously lessons to be learned there. I'm not saying that there weren't circumstances that forced us into this position, but as a person who believes in science communication and puts a lot of effort into science communication, I hope that my colleagues that have never done that before start to recognize the value of it and the importance of staying connected to communities that support us.
Absolutely, and recognizing the importance of engagement with policymakers as well. That's another big part of this, the SNAP organization, the visits that we're doing right now, where we are training and encouraging scientists across the country to go have meetings with your representatives and talk to them about the value of federally funded research and have your asks that they maintain or increase funding.
It's been great talking to you, Izzy, and I appreciate your time today. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt.
We've just heard from Isako Tomassi, PhD student in the School of Integrative Plant Science in the Plant Pathology and Plant-Microbe Biology program at Cornell University. Be sure to check out the show notes for links related to Izzy's work and science communication efforts. I'm Matt Kasson, host of Plantopia. Thanks for listening.